Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
yes, with the sports of the Positive Tip Podcast. We're pumped up this evening, right? It's a Sunday night, kind of off sports type of weekend, right? College basketball. There was a lot of NBA, no football. Football's done, over with. We're still waiting for baseball. So Kenny, how you doing?
I'm good. You can tell it's a little dry because we went to Buffalo Wild Wings, Isaac and I, last night, and
Right.
it was like 4 o'clock, and they were showing college wrestling.
College.
So like, you could tell there wasn't a lot on. But also, pitchers and catchers report this Wednesday for some teams, Thursday for others. So
Now,
here we
are,
go.
are they are they all set in Arizona? Because I had thought there was some pushback on the Cactus League.
Um, that's a good question.
So what's up with the Cactus League?
I'm not too sure. I know they had a little bit of a hiccup, but I believe they're still good to go. I know with the Grapefruit League, where both the Yankees and Mets play, they're kind of restructuring it. So, like, you'll see a lot of the same matchups a little bit more. Like, there's an East and a West or North, however they do it. So, like, a lot of oh, wow, they're traveling an hour away. It's not going to really happen that much. So,
Yeah,
try to keep it a
yeah,
little bit more
yeah,
bubbly, I guess.
yeah. Interesting. Okay. No, I'm looking forward to that. And I think baseball. Hopefully, they'll stay safe. They'll do it right. We'll come back to baseball in a second. So let's go around the horn a little bit, and we have one other topic for tonight after we go around the horn with some basketball, with some baseball, and so let's talk a little NBA. So we're starting to get, we're really moving along here, and we'll get to our Knicks in a second because I'm very, very, very positive, excited about them. I know you are too. But what's if you look around the NBA, what are some things that are surprising you a little bit? What are some things that you expected? What's your overall take here on they're a third of the way through, right? Because it's a shortened season, 72 games, right, instead of 82. So they're a little bit of a third of the way through. So what are some things that have got you a little bit surprised here that you're watching?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. Last night was a very interesting matchup. Kevin Durant going back to Golden State for the first time.
Yeah.
But the Golden State Warriors, like, Steph Curry has really like stepped it up in these last like month and change. Because I think at first, like, he wasn't used to being the guy, the way that really, like, he's never had to do that his entire career. But I feel like he's really stepped into that role really well, and I think you're really starting to see the fruits of that labor. Also, the Utah Jazz have been probably one of the quietest, best teams out there.
Yeah, they've been killing it.
They have
Yeah.
I have here 22-5.
Yeah.
Um,
That's amazing.
so yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest surprises. I think also Brooklyn seems to be good. I think there's still a lot of question marks with them. Um, their defense to me also is a little, well, I guess a lot suspect, but I don't know how that's going to play out once the playoffs roll around, because defense always takes a notch up. But um, also something else, and this might be a topic for later on, but the All-Star game. At first, there seemed to be a little bit of buzz about it, but there's been several guys that have pushed back at the idea of just doing like a one-day All-Star game. I know LeBron and Giannis were two of the guys, which they're like two big guys with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really it for me.
I'm not sure why they want to do an all-star game. Maybe for revenue, maybe for money. If it goes to charity or something like that, I'd be all for it. But I think this is one of those years you could skip the all-star game. I really do. I don't think I don't think the even the most diehard NBA fan, I don't think will be upset if there's no All-Star game this year. Of all years, let the players get some rest. I think if they want to take a few days off or something like that. But I just don't think that an All-Star game it just doesn't make sense in this time of COVID. I just don't think that an All-Star game, but it's whatever. So Utah Jazz. So the Knicks caught them early in the year and beat them. So one of those 5 losses is actually to the Knicks because they got off to a very slow start. They're a really good team, and I think they're poised to do some special things in the playoffs. The trouble is, that Western Conference. You have to go through the 2 Los Angeles teams, obviously, and Dallas is struggling. Denver is struggling out of the gates early. And Kenny, I wanted to ask you this. Do you think some of those teams that are struggling, like those 2 especially that played deep into the playoffs, do you think that this has anything to do with, a very, very short offseason for the NBA? Those seem to be the only 2 teams, although the Lakers have been a little bit up and down. But those 2 teams seem to have gotten hit hard, as well as Miami.
Yeah, I would say it absolutely has to do with it. Because especially like the teams that they only had a 77 game or 70 something day lapse between the finals and so like especially like a team like that has a lot of young guys like Dallas. Although I'm hoping Dallas continues to tank because that pick is going to the Knicks.
It's going to the Knicks, right? Yeah.
But like you look at a lot of those teams like the Luka Doncic's and the Porzingises and the Jokic's and all like the guys that are very young, like you usually see that adjustment, especially like in the second year for like rookies that are used to playing a very short college season and then go to the NBA. It's kind of the same thing, but another almost full NBA season. So it doesn't surprise me. That's why I think like you look at a team, for example, like Phoenix, who Chris Paul has gotten them to a 4 seed. I think they're doing better. I think that's also why a team like the Knicks is doing better too. Because like they hadn't played since March. A lot of those guys haven't played since March. So like they're a little bit more on top of it. So I'm hoping that doesn't turn the tide on the Knicks. I don't think it will because I think they're still playing really well. But I think it is kind of affecting a lot of the teams that played far into the bubble there, like a team like Miami and Dallas, Denver, all those guys.
Yeah, we said that early on in the season that we felt like the Knicks might have an opportunity to pick some teams off. Looks like Phoenix also. I was actually just killing some time. I was on hold with one of the car companies yesterday, and I turned on Phoenix and Philly. They were like playing a late afternoon, game, and obviously Philly's a very, very good team, but Phoenix handled them really, really well. So they're a good, solid team, and they have a good bench and everything. I think it's going to be really interesting. It's been a weird NBA season so far because of some of these back-to-back games and some of them back-to-back in the afternoon, and then some of them you're playing the same team a couple of times, and it's just like a random team that you're playing twice in a row. So, but I think that overall the NBA is handling the COVID stuff pretty good. But let's shift gears now to the Knicks, and you talk to me about the Knicks first. I hope you're able to see some of the games there. I think you are. What's been your thoughts? I mean, they're 13 and 15 now, 2 games under 500. I believe at this point last year they had only won 4 or 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. Full tank mode, this time last year. It's just I think I'll say this, and I'll let you talk. The games are just exciting. Even the games that they're losing, they're right in it, and they're just exciting. I know the last 2 games was blowouts, but those are exciting when you're on the receiving end of it, or you're doing the blowing out. But what's your overall thoughts on the Knicks?
I do think it's not just a fluke. Number one, I think their defense has been amazing. It really it's a huge testament to Thibodeau and just the kind of mentality that he's brought. Because because I last time I checked, this was still the case that they lead the league in points allowed. They lead the league in field goal percentage allowed,
Yeah.
3-point percentage allowed as well. So like they're playing tremendous defense. And I think like regardless of how you play offensively, if you play a strong defensive game, you're always going to be in a game.
You're gonna be in every
Um,
game. Yeah.
yeah. I think also like the big story of Julius Randle. I still don't know where this game has been the last year and change, but he's been amazing. Um, and I think also one of the big like I feel like it's a story that we know because like we watch the Knicks, but I think it's a story a lot of the NBA is sleeping on is how great Emmanuel Quickly has been. Like he's not rookie of the year maybe, but he has been quite the steal that late in the draft that they got him. Um, it also seems like the rest of these other role playing type of pieces kind of fit pretty well. Like Derrick Rose has looked really good in the couple games that he's been back in a Knicks uniform. Um, Alec Burks has been pretty decent. I really like Austin Rivers too. I wasn't sure about him at first, but like I don't remember what game that was where he hit like 11 shots in a row or something like that.
Hmm.
He's been really good. Um, the big the big issue now though is Mitchell Robinson being out. He's going to
Yeah.
be out another month and a half. That's obviously going to hurt both defensively and also depth wise. But I think at the same time, like right now, the Knicks are in the 7th seed, which means they would be playing Milwaukee in the playoffs. Do I have much hope that they would win that series? No, but it would be really exciting to see them in the playoffs again, even if it is to get one and done by Boston or Philly or Milwaukee or one of those guys.
Well, yeah, and fans are coming back. I'm not sure if you heard that.
Yeah.
So about 2,000 fans or so will be back at the Garden, and about 2,000 here in Brooklyn as well. I believe starting on the 23rd or something like that. Yeah, listen, this has been fun to watch, and it is all about coaching and leadership. Yeah, there were a couple of nice pickups here, but I don't think any of us got excited when they picked up Alec Burks or when they picked up Nerlens Noel. I think we were like, okay, they're just spending some of the money that they had, but
Yeah.
these guys are playing at a very high level, and I think it's coaching. I don't think I know it's coaching, and to go. I was very reluctant. I think you and I had exchanged some messages on Derrick Rose, even though Derrick Rose, the year that he was here, I thought played well, but there was other stuff with him. You remember when he disappeared for a couple of days, and you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there was like other, and then he had this trial. He got accused of some really bad things, and he got acquitted of it. And it came back up even in a civil thing, and they acquitted him of that too. So he probably wasn't as involved as was originally written, but he had some stuff going on. Like he never cleared up why he had just disappeared. And it wasn't just a date. Like nobody knew where he was at. So people were really worried about his safety. And Derrick Rose has always been, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Eccentric, maybe, an enigma a little bit. He doesn't say much. But I got to tell you, man, and I know he's continued to play well these last couple of years in Minnesota and Detroit. I didn't expect this. He's so fired up to come back here. It's almost like he had something to prove. And he looks in like tip-top shape. He looks like he did when he was a rookie or his first couple of years when he won MVP. He's got that quickness again. And speaking of quickness, him and Quickly, they've been just unbelievable off the bench, that second unit. And it's teams are like, man, they're bringing this thunder off the bench. And I agree with you. The defense has gone from worst to first. They were last in all that stuff. The Rockets last night, I think they shot something like 8 for 48 from the 3-point line. And I mean,
Wow.
they just kept hoisting up 3-point shots. And that part of that is them. But the other part was that there was no freebies. The Knicks were like, they were contesting the 3-pointers and everything like that. And listen, the Rockets aren't that good anyway, I don't think, but that was a good win. And it really showed the defense. I mean, they're holding these teams almost every night under 100 points. The
Yeah.
contrast, when you think about this, Kenny, the contrast, you think about the Nets. And again, I'm not comparing. The Nets clearly have a better team, right? But where's the Nets defense at? Every night, teams are scoring like 130 points on them. I don't think that's happened to the Knicks.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe the Clippers got like 128 or 129 on them, but outside of that, they're holding teams under 100. The Wizards were under 100, so were the Rockets. Even those games they lost to Miami, it was under 100. So, um, I'm very, very optimistic. I did
Yeah.
read I did read this. Let me get your opinion. I did read that they'll be open to trading their assets for if another star veteran player comes available, which is going to happen. Somebody's going to come available at the trading deadline that we're not on our radar right now. A team that's maybe fallen out of it. There's going to be somebody that asks out. What are your thoughts on that?
Depends on who it is.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. If it's someone, say, like, well, obviously this is totally hypothetical because they wouldn't do it. But like, let's say if someone like Joel Embiid became available, then yeah, sure. But like, if you're gonna get like a mediocre star, or I don't want to say mediocre star, but not like a guy that's gonna like change the complexion of your team, I would just keep going with what we got here. I was looking this up too. The points per game. The Knicks are number one, but it's also not really, or sorry, opponents' points per game. They're number one in the Eastern Conference. It's not close. They're giving up 103 points a game. Number two is Boston at 109.
Wow. That's
Lakers and
7
Utah are
points.
both at 105. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
like they're doing amazing things defensively, and like I would hate for someone to come in and kind of mess that up, but also you never know. I think I'd be open to it depending on what it is.
Yeah. There's a big part of me is that I want to see this through now. I like the team that they got, but I said that before they got Derrick Rose, and Derrick Rose has really made a great impact, I think on the team in the 3-4 games that he's played. So I think you're right. I think let's just see maybe who it is. And listen, we're not going to knock James Harden here, but I'm really glad that now he didn't come here, and he's doing well with the Nets. Don't get me wrong, and as out of shape as he looked at first, I read that he actually, and only because of Julius Randle was averaging for a while the most minutes of any player in the league, and now it's James Harden that has the most. I mean, the guy's playing like 37 minutes a game, which is great. So obviously, he's gotten kind of a spark now, coming to Brooklyn. I think that the Knicks, it's such a testament to leadership and the coaching and culture. I really sincerely think that both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant didn't want to come to the Knicks because of the culture. And I think that players are going to want to play for a coach like this and a team that they see that just really plays very hard. Let's just face it, right? You played basketball before. Defense is all about hustle. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a poor defensive player, that to me tells me that you're not hustling. You're not playing as hard, as intense. You have to keep that intensity up. And he's done a good job of getting these guys to do that.
He really has. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like they also, like, this time, I feel like every year for like the last 5 or so years, it's like Knicks games are just not watchable.
Oh,
Like, you just look and it's like, oh, they get blown out by 15. Oh my gosh. Julius Randle missed another 12 shots today.
yeah.
Like, there was very little to actually look at this time, like,
Yeah.
in recent history. So, like, even if they miss the playoffs, I think just watching them defensively, just watching how it looks like they actually care. It's so much better, like, for the fans. And it'll be nice to have people there.
It will. Because I think the New York fans will really appreciate the way this team plays. And last thing I'll say is that It doesn't matter. If I'm the Bucks or the Celtics or the 76ers, think about this. Do you really want to play the Knicks in the first round? And again, I'm not going to make any delusion that they would beat the Bucks, in any series or any one of those other teams. But do you really want to play the Knicks? I mean, as hard as they play defensively, in the first round of playoffs, I think not. So it's definitely a tribute to coaching and the leadership. All right, give us a recap on. Let's shift to baseball and the baseball off season, which is just about winding down now. I don't think there's any other big free agents out there. There's probably still some that are looking for homes, but for the most part, all the big free agents, landed. The teams have kind of made their moves. I'm sure some teams like the Mets might still make another move. I know there's some chatter about Chris Bryant again. But overall, off season, who would be your winners? Who would be your losers for the off season of baseball?
I hate saying this as one of the winners because they won the World Series, but the Dodgers. Somehow you still land Trevor Bauer. Now, granted, Trevor Bauer is making more money than 3 teams in Major League Baseball this year. One of them being the Indians too.
That's amazing.
But you added the NL Cy Young Award winner the year after you won the World Series. And they also kept Justin Turner. He announced that yesterday.
Yeah, that's
they're
big.
definitely a winner. Yeah. But I think honestly the biggest winner of the offseason is probably the San Diego Padres. They added Mr. I can actually pitch more than 6 innings, Blake Snell, and also Yu Darvish. So their pitching is loaded. Tatis is going to be another year older, another year into the majors. So I think they're definitely a team that's moved up a lot. You look at some of the other teams too, like a lot of the contenders. I think as far as losers go, I'm not just picking on them because I'm not the biggest fan of them, but the Rays. You lost not only your Cy Young Award winner, but also Charlie Morton, who's one of this might be a little bit of an overstatement, but he's one of the most clutch pitchers of this time, especially in the playoffs. And they both walked.
Yeah.
So I would say that they're a big loser. Another big winner would be the Blue Jays. Adding George Springer, I think, is very big for them. For the Yankees' sake, I hope it doesn't make much of a difference, but you never know. I forgot who they got pitching wise, but I think they're going to be. I think when it comes to the AL East, it's going to be the Blue Jays and the Yankees again, which we haven't seen in a little bit. But I also think the Mets did a really good job this offseason.
Yeah.
Getting Francisco Lindor was a huge deal, especially adding in Carlos Carrasco. That rotation is still going to be very, very good. If you get a bounce back season from some of these bullpen guys like Adele and Betances, who maybe a regular offseason and everything will really help him out. We'll see what the gap is with Robbie Cano not there. But I think in general the Mets did a really good job of retooling and showing, hey, we actually can spend money. The Yankees, I think, did a good job too, especially losing both Paxton and Tanaka. The biggest question for them still is health.
Yeah.
Kluber and Talion played, I think, 2 starts in the last 2 years or something like that. So I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
But I think signing LeMahieu was really big. And hopefully having a full season of Stanton and Judge will actually show what both of them can do. But both of them have to stay healthy, and that hasn't happened since the Yankees have acquired Stanton. So I think it's a very interesting offseason too for the entire NL Central. Because aside from the Cardinals adding Arenado, no one really did anything. So I'm interested to see how that division is going to end up. I think at this point, the Cardinals are probably the favorites, but no one really added any pieces, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I Great analysis. There were some teams there. I'll give them one or two different ones because a lot of those teams is what I had in my mind too. I do think. I think that Tampa is a big loser for not only what they did with Snell in Game 6 last year, but then to trade the guy away. I just, but it's so funny. I'll say that, and they'll always like have like a replacement, for him. So I guess we'll see. I have no clue what the Red Sox are doing. They traded their outfielder who's really good, I thought, and still kind of young and really not expensive yet. So I'm not sure if they're in all rebuild mode. And you and I are very, very familiar with the city of Boston. Both been there. We've been there several times. You went to school around there for a long time. We know those fans are not used to no rebuilding, So I'll be curious. Although they have their manager back, which I think is good for them. It's almost like he doesn't have the weapons, to compete. Not with the Yankees and the Jays, I don't think, this year. I really liked what the Cardinals did, especially with getting Arenado. I think that he's going to be reborn there. I mean, he hasn't really missed a beat anyway, but I think he's one of those guys that's going to prove that he can hit outside of Coors Field. And so I think the Mets is my obvious one, and I do like what the Mets did. Actually, I love what the Mets did. I think that even if they don't make another move, I think I'm happy with the team that they have. I was a little puzzled by the Braves, and they were a little bit inactive. I mean, they did bring Ozuna back, which was big for them, but they didn't really make any other changes. I mean, they let go a couple of the guys, and they haven't brought Markakis back, who's kind of been the heart of that team for a long time. Adam Duvall, who was really good for them, just a really kind of quiet pickup, who did extremely well the last 2 years for them. They didn't bring him back, so I'll be curious what they do. They're obviously the team to beat, in the East. So I think it was a good offseason. I think you and I what we expected to happen kind of happened. That we didn't see these really huge contracts, and I mean, how could they expect that? With no fans all last year, the revenue has to be hardly nothing. So hopefully we'll see some fans this year. But I'm excited for baseball. I think you got some really, really good teams. I'm excited to see how both leagues really shake out, and it'll be interesting to see a year later the Astros, what they do. They've lost some, here. The Central and the American League will be interesting with the White Sox. The Twins are still good. So I think I'm really pumped up. So hopefully, knock on wood, everything starts on time. And we get through season with guys not getting hurt. All right. I had an interesting question to throw at you. I'm looking at we're about 28 minutes, so we can go about 5 more minutes, and we can pick this up next week if we want to. God's timing, right? I think both you and I we've talked about how God has moved in our lives and brought certain places. For you, we talked about losing your job and then winding up where you wound up. You wouldn't have never met, your future wife, and Isaac now wouldn't be here. So many things fell into place. And I guess what I'm getting at is that with sports, we've had a lot of this now in all sports where players want to get traded and want to leave. And the curious thing for me is, how do they know the time is right? On the other spectrum, though, you also have a lot of players. Bradley Beal is one of them that stands out only because the Knicks played the Wizards. I know he didn't play the other night, but he's a guy that says, "No, I'm here. I'm sticking it out. I'm going to be part of when we get better again." But a lot of players don't do that. As soon as the team, like Arenado, even though he signed that huge contract, he's like, the team's going nowhere, so I want out. And is that God's timing for them? I mean, certainly for a guy like Tom Brady, he waited it out till he was a free agent, and look at what happened with him. We're all worked out. James Harden, to be determined, right? Whether that's going to work out. Was it his timing to force his way out of Houston? And these are Matthew Stafford did the same thing. Matthew Stafford, I don't know if you saw this. This was pretty interesting. He happened to be on vacation at the same resort as the Rams coach, Sean McVay. And so that was where he started making phone calls. And they really wanted to ship him to Carolina. A few other teams had offered a lot more, even though I think it's going to work out to be a good trade for both teams. But the fact that he had built this relationship with Sean McVay, they're at a resort together, even though that seems a little bit like tampering.
Yeah, a little bit.
But Stafford, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, who is one of the role models of sports, right, is quietly now asked for a trade. Carson Wentz, James Harden, as we said. But I want to hear you talk a little bit about God's timing. If we need to pick this up a little bit more next week, we can, because maybe this is a bigger subject. But if I'm forcing my way out of somewhere, is that coming from God? Or I don't know. It could be. And again, I don't want to say, none of these guys, prayed about this. I don't know that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think we should probably unpack this a little bit more, but I also do feel like, to an extent, like, to me personally, I don't necessarily like when guys like demand a trade, especially like I look at James Harden in particular, where he's like refusing to play, where he's like, I'm gonna play poorly, I'm gonna come out of shape, I'm gonna do all these things to kind of show, hey, I'm not gonna give you my best. Because I think it also is a testament to, well, if he's gonna do that there, how do I know that he's not gonna do it with me? Um, but I think to an extent, like, there is a such thing as free agency. Like, if Nolan Arenado didn't want to play for Colorado, he did not have to sign that extension. I'm sure if he went to free agency, he would have gotten more than what he got anyway with that contract extension. I look at Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson might be a little different because it seems like he was kind of like told two different things. Like, they told him he would have a lot of say, he would have a lot of clout with whoever they hire as head coach, and whoever they hire as GM. And apparently they didn't consult him on either. So like I can get that a little bit more. The Carson Wentz situation as well. Like I feel like he was kind of shellacked a little bit, even though he didn't really deserve it. Like I know he didn't play well, but like I feel like the way Doug Peterson handled it was not done that well. So I think in general, when it comes to God's timing, there are times where there are circumstances in your current position where God may use the bad stuff to kind of push you somewhere else. But sometimes people will kind of act like God and then just kind of do whatever you want. And I think that's where it's not okay. Like if you're doing the right thing, if you are legit getting like completely run over in your job, you're getting acted like a doormat, then yes, you should definitely try to get out of the situation you're in. But if it's just like oh well, my team's not that good, or I don't feel like being here, or I want to play with my friends, at that point wait till free agency.
Yeah.
Because like to me, like God shouldn't. I like if I was in a church and I'm just like, well, I don't feel like being anymore, and I demand to like go pastor somewhere else. Like God's not going to honor that. God doesn't honor it when you're trying to make it all about you and not more about like let's follow His timing and stuff. So that's kind of my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I so want to hear more, but we're just about at 35 minutes. So why don't we start with this topic? Because I think that I want to share. For me, obviously, I've been with the same company 23 years, but there were times where I wanted to move off of a team, and I've changed roles a few times, and I want to go a little bit more into that and hear more about your story obviously I know your story, so I want other people to hear it. But I think that I also want to talk about money because I think Russell Wilson is still the highest paid quarterback, and certainly James Harden is the highest paid player in the NBA. That I know for sure. And so it's such a testament that money also is sometimes not a factor. In fact, a lot of times isn't. Like we just talked about Arenado, and all the money that he has coming to him. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's start with this next week, and we'll jump into some other things. I'm sure there'll be some interesting stuff we'll find. We'll look for an inspirational story as well. I'm sure we'll find some other stuff to talk about because sports is sports. There's always stuff that's happening. So why don't you
Yeah.
take us on?
All right, this is Kenny Squared N
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. Take a look at part 2 next week.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks, Ken. Take care, everybody.